about politics. This is the show where you can ask anything that you like about politics, and I will do my best to give you a great answer. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. I know it can feel like trying to learn a new language. So, this is the show where you can ask all your questions about politics, and no one's going to judge you or roast you or debate you or anything of that nature. I know that there are a lot of shows out there that are really popular that feature Republicans and Democrats yelling at each other and calling each other names. This is not that show. This is just good faith answers to all of your good faith questions. Engage we engage in good faith on the substance of the matter. Mia says free Palestine, and Jarrett says that also. What's up, JP? Great to see you again over on Twitch. All right, everybody else, welcome to Ask Me Anything About Politics. My name is Jarrett, and I'm here to answer all your questions about politics, regardless of if they are simple or complicated, regardless of if you are a left-wing person or a right-wing person. Everybody is welcome here, whether you are a Republican, a Democrat, something in the middle, something on the outskirts. This is not a fighty show. This is not a roasty show. This is not a debate show. CS, is that Trump said Ukraine had no cars. Now he's asking them for help. I mean, our supplies are dwindling. So that's just one of a million reasons why this war is extremely stupid. Flower emoji says, where do you sit on the political spectrum? I'm a progressive Democrat. Connor says, what can you say about polarization in modern day America? I think that it is largely inorganic. Like if you read books like Dark Money and you take a look at things like bot farms in Russia and the way that social media algorithms can be manipulated, I think it's clear that the billionaire class wants us fighting amongst ourselves, be it Republican voter versus Democratic voter, or even MAGA voter versus Groyper voter, or centrist Democrat versus progressive Democrats. And while I do think that it's important to discuss these issues, whether it is within your own party or not, we need to kind of like couch every political discussion in the reality of the billionaire class is the one that is doing this. The billionaire class is at fault, and we need to work together to form a coalition to make sure that we tax them out of existence and remove their political power. They should have the same political power as every other human being. It should not make a difference the fact that they have billions of dollars. All right. I don't know what your name is because it's got emojis and stuff. Says, are you a theist? I don't think I am a theist. Flower emoji says, what's your opinion on Zoran in New York? I like him a lot. Alex Lopez says, what's your view on Israel and AIPAC? I am for the people of Israel. I'm against the government of Israel. I do not like AIPAC. They're a far right-wing organization. I don't like a lot of far right-wing organizations. So AIPAC, Heritage Foundation, Federalist Society, I think they all suck. Yeah. What do I call you, person with the hard to read screen name? Says, how are you determining what is good then? I mean, it's a massive moral question. Like, how do we know what is good behavior versus bad behavior? Do we, are we justified as humans in making things like murder illegal? Like, what's the value of attaching a morality to that versus like a logistical lens? I don't know if I need to have a moral relativism conversation today. But just suffice to say that I believe that some of this is innate. Like, I think that there are things that we can feel, but I think that there are other things that just kind of like work out better logistically. Like, if we can trust each other not to murder each other, then we can all have a much better life, not having to look over our shoulders. So maybe making murder illegal be a good thing, shit like that. It's complicated, but some of it's not complicated. Levy says, do you think Iran can make a tiny nuke? I have no idea. I do not believe that they have nuclear weapons technology yet. I think the soonest assessment is like months away, maybe like a month away. Odin's son, great to see you again. Says, hope you're well. Been out for a bit. Opinion on the Iran conflict. It is so stupid. The fact that Trump launched this war illegally, expensively, at great cost, both monetarily and in human life and effort. And it's such an own goal. Like, gas prices are skyrocketing. Other retail prices are going to skyrocket because there's a lot of trade that happens through that port, and so now, and it's all shut off now. Trump is threatening manufacturers. He's threatening companies. He's telling them grow a spine. Tell your people to grow a spine as they are shipping, I don't know how many millions or billions of dollars worth of goods and merchandise through an active war zone. And he's telling them, don't be such ninnies about driving your boat through a fucking war zone. It's so fucking stupid. There are American citizens that are stuck in the Middle East because he did not think through this at all. We're getting notifications from intelligence agencies saying that Iran might be activating sleeper cells outside of the country. Like, there are so many stupid ass knock-on effects to this war. Aside from the fact that it's illegal, it's just going to be it is so detrimental for America, Western civilization, the globe in general, stability, global stability. Like, yeah, it's a stupid, expensive, illegal war that is also happens to be a massive betrayal to everybody that voted for him, because this was one of his big fucking campaign promises. I cannot say enough negative things about this stupid fucking war with Iran. All right, Little Lamp says thoughts on nuclear deterrence. Massively. I don't think it works because, I think we can all imagine a human being not caring about, nuclear deterrence, not caring if their own civilians get hurt or if they eventually go down. They just want to do something big. Some men just want to watch the world burn. I think we need to move more towards, dismantling all nuclear arms, as opposed to making sure that everybody gets them so that it's all mutually assured destruction. Lukey Luke says, who'd you vote for? Democrats up and down the ballot. Again, I don't know how to say your name. Asked, do you ever host debates anywhere? I'm interested in debating your worldview, as you seem genuine. I don't do debates as a rule. If anybody ever wanted me to invite me onto their show to do a debate, I would probably say yes. But I don't do debates on my show. I don't find them productive at all. But if you have any questions, you can go ahead and ask them. Sela says, yet Iranians begged for this. Not every Iranian. Sela, what do you think the percentage of Iranians are that wanted us to do this versus did not want us to do this? And let's poll some of these Iranians after this has been going on for a while and factionalization starts and potentially a civil war breaks out and services aren't available. People are being blown up indiscriminately, regardless of who they want to be leading them in Iran. I guarantee you that the parents of those 100 schoolgirls that got murdered by an American bomb, I bet you they didn't want this to fucking happen. All right. David Kleeman says, there's literally Iranians celebrating this over there and here. Yeah, I'm sure there are, David, but there's also a bunch that aren't. There's also a bunch that are really pissed off about this, David. Civilians that America has killed in Iran, their families are very upset about this. And it's going to get worse. Like we've seen this show before. How many times we got to learn this lesson, Odin says, how should the world respond to the IRGC killing 30,000 of its own protesters? Genuine question. It's a really, really good question, Odin son. And the problem is that it's a complicated question. It involves things like, supporting information networks within the country. It involves maintaining diplomatic relations with the countries surrounding that country. How do we deal with a country that is murdering its own citizens? If we help the insurrectionists too much, then that's just they're able to use that as messaging strategy. Like these are not really Iranian citizens. These are just tools, paid tools of the Satanist America regime, the evil American empire, stuff like that. It's hard, it's complicated, and it has to come within the country. Like no matter what we do, it has to be from Iran. Otherwise, it is just interventionism, and nobody is prepared. Nobody is prepared enough to govern Iran than Iranians. I hope that answers your question. It's complicated. Vandaloo says, what do you think of the conflict in Iran? I think what Trump did was really stupid. It's expensive and stupid. It's expensive in lives and it's expensive in dollars. It's not going to accomplish any of the goals that Trump said were the goals. It's going to make prices go up. There are not enough negative things that I can say about it. It is illegal. It is a self-own. It is stupid, and people are dying, and it's crazy expensive. I want you to think about the billions of dollars that we are wasting just in missiles and bullets instead of you and your family getting free or cheaper healthcare. And we are paying for the right to have all of our gas prices go through the fucking roof and have inflation go through the fucking roof, James says, do you support the drug boat strikes? It's one of the things I actually like that Trump did. So, James, a couple of things about that. I can agree with you, I think, that it is okay when people who are trying to illegally smuggle drugs into the country suffer some sort of legal consequence for that illegal thing that they did. But Trump blowing up those boats off the coast of Venezuela was wildly illegal. They've never proven to us that those boats were filled with drug dealers, drug runners. But even if they had proven that, being a drug runner is not a death sentence. And even if it was, American military or Pete Hegseth or Donald Trump do not have the unilateral authority to just decide who gets to be murdered in the middle of the fucking Atlantic Ocean. James, let me know what you think about that, James, because I'm curious how emphatic you are, how much of this information you had available to you before. Abdul says, why the dumb Republicans never learn that Republicans destroying our country now? A Democrat need to. I don't like to call voters dumb, Abdul. They're living in a different information environment than us. Some of them are not dumb people. Some of them are shitty people. You got to consider that as well. But yeah, the issue is misinformation and propaganda. It is the very effective messaging strategy from the billionaire class, convincing people that the only way to be a good person or a good Christian or a real American is to vote Republican. Odinson says, did you hear about the strikes in Ecuador this weekend? Kind of swept under the rug. Yeah, we are already seeing a bunch of negative knock-on effects from this war. We're seeing, incursions into NATO countries. Where else is America and Israel striking versus where else is Iran retaliating? Like there are, we are loosening restrictions on Russia, which is giving them more money and power in the fucking Ukraine conflict, and is hurting us as Russia is helping Iran with intelligence. Like, we are fucking this up so badly. Trump and America and his government are fucking this up for America so badly. Like, goddamn, I cannot say enough negative things about this stupid fucking war. All right, Brian says, do you think it's a good perspective for us to save the Iran people? I do, but that's not what this war is doing, and that is not what the long-term effect of this war is going to be. All right, again, don't know what your name is, says, my question would be, is how can you have a prescriptive worldview when you can't determine what good is? I don't think that it is accurate to say that we can't determine what good is. I think we can have a reasonable approximation of what good is. And where the gray areas are concerned, that's where we devote our finest legal and philosophical minds to figure out how do we live with each other if we disagree in these gray areas. But I think that there are things that we can all agree on are good and moral and ethical. And so we strive towards that kind of society, even if it seems, theoretically impossible considering the breadth of our moral experience. Alrighty. Floofy DeWolf says, Russians are the good guys, though. No, they're not, Floofy. You're in question jail. Ask a question or I'm going to boot you. Wendy Diane says, did you hear about the Pam Bondi testimony? Please explain what this means. I'm not sure which Pam Bondi testimony you're referring to, Wendy Diane. Could you put something in there to clarify? The political anarchist says, what are the two fundamentals of political science? I don't know how you would define that, the political anarchists. Again, don't know what your name is, says, well, what do you see good as then? And what does everyone agree on since different cultures don't? Well, we can take it simple. We can be like, don't kill, don't steal. We can get more specific with it with things like, what should be the difference between a rich person and a poor person? What are the things that we can agree every human being should be just given if they are alive today? free clean air to breathe and free clean water to drink. Some people believe that no human being should starve to death, and I kind of believe that as well. Some people believe that no human should ever die of exposure, that everybody should have a place where they can be indoors to sleep at night, and I tend to agree with that as well. But some people disagree with that, and that's where we do a little bit of our compromising and communicating. Big Raspberry says, is Trump an anti-fascist since he made Nick Fuentes a Democrat? No, Trump is not an anti-fascist. Being against other fascists does not make you an anti-fascist. Being against fascists is perfectly in line with the fascist philosophy, because fascists don't believe in other fascists. They just believe in themselves. They're fascist groups. It is very possible for fascist groups to hate each other. Joe Padilla and Muzzking, thank you so much for helping me reach my first gift goal of the day. All right, Slayzilla says, do you fuck with the UN's SGDs? I don't know what SGDs is, but I generally fuck with the UN. Odinson says, he was just worried he'd get out-fashioned, LOL. Yeah, 100%. Just because you beat a breakdancer in a breakdancing competition does not mean that you are not a breakdancer any longer. Triplet says, it's so sad Democrats are so weak to not see the threat. To not see what threat? Triplets. It's weird to say that we are too weak to see, because being weak does not necessarily mean that you cannot see things, Triplets. You're sus as hell. I don't trust you one tick. Benny Lou says, should the two countries that striked Iran should be prosecuted in International Criminal Court? I think so. Yeah, if there was any justice in the world, we would find everybody who both ordered and facilitated these strikes happening, be prosecuted by the ICC, 100%. Joe Padilla and Muzzking, thank you so much for helping me reach my second gift goal of the day. Ace says, did you hear that military man saying he can't go to Iran because he would be turned on by the women there? I have not seen that story. That sounds like a troll or something. Odinson says, do you think Trump would have received congressional approval hypothetically? I think it's unlikely. I think that there were enough Republicans in the Senate and in the House that were willing to say no to this war. But I can't be 100% sure about that. And I think at least having that vote, even if it would have eventually passed, would still be better than what we're having right now, because there would be people, Republican representatives, who would have had to put their name and face behind that vote. Okay, let's see here. Ace said he posted the video on TikTok of him saying that. Yeah, I don't know anything about that, Ace. I'm just saying, I don't think that a person says that because they have, because they're operating in good faith. Greasy says, how long do you think this will last with everything going on? I have absolutely no idea, Greasy. I don't know. Yeah, these things tend to get worse the longer they go on, and the longer that they go on, the harder they are to stop. So I've got no fucking idea. Joe Padilla says, is there going to be a draft? I have no idea. I think it's troubling that the Trump administration is trying to float it like it would be a good thing to do. Oof, excuse me. Ginger Specter says, what do you think of this administration blocking the FBI, NSA, and DHS from sending information out? I think it's bad, but it's also kind of like typical of the Trump administration. Like, they are one of the least transparent administrations, and so they're going to keep any information that makes them look bad or incompetent or corrupt from getting out. And the stuff that does get out, they'll say it's all fake anyways. But yeah, this is all part of the fascist agenda. Control the information. What's up, Airstyle? Good to see you again over there. Greasy says they keep stacking the next thing on. LOL. Now Cuba is a problem. Yeah, how many stupid, intractable, self-owned, expensive wars is the Trump administration going to start, considering that he promised America that this is the exact thing that he wasn't going to do? He has criticized Republican presidents who have done a better version of what he is currently doing. And now he is doing what they're doing, only stupider. Like, goddamn. Fucking, can we get back to a better timeline, everybody? Sarah and Muzzking and Triska, thank you so much for helping me reach my third gift goal of the day. You know what that means, everybody? It is the best part of the day. It is finger hearts o'clock. Yay. Yay. Celebrate, for there shall be finger hearts o'clock. Ace says, do you think if Kamala won, the people's eyes wouldn't as open to the evil as they are now? No, I think that we probably would have had just like a much more responsible presidential administration, and people like Renee Good would still be alive, and people like Alex Preddy would still be alive, and lots of other people who are being tortured and sexually assaulted and murdered by ICE and CPB would not be in those situations, so it would be better. Sarah, Triska, and Joe, thank you so much for the first finger hearts goal. CS says, do you think Trump will actually try to colonize or annex any of these places? I think unfettered, 100%. But it's not just other politicians that could potentially fetter him and rein him in. It is situations like the stock market crashing and business leaders getting upset and, our allies removing privileges, things like that. Okay, Van Tyne says, do you mean Minnesota leadership? I think I know what you're saying, Van, and no. I believe that what you're saying is wrong. Feel free to clarify. It goes with the Gozerian says, it's so sad Kamala couldn't say ceasefire in Palestine. I mean, she said the things that she was politically able to say in order to communicate that she was going to be different than Biden on this issue. Nobody really listened to her because she's a woman. Odinson says, I know you've mentioned you like Buttigieg. Can you try to sell him to me? Yeah, I think that Buttigieg would be, obviously, any Democrat is better than what we currently have. Any Democrat is better than any Republican administration. So that's just like step number one. He's very pragmatic. Some Democrats eschew a kind of funding that Buttigieg welcomes because he believes it's better to take in that money and be competitive than eschew it and risk losing those elections. And you might think that that's a really unwise thing to do because it could compromise him, but some people might argue that it is more logistically sound than eschewing those financial avenues. Let's see here. Young, I think, accounts for something. Being part of the LGBTQ community, I think, counts for something as well. He is a little bit more of a centrist than I am, so I find it harder to make the case broader or more specific than I already have. But yeah, I think if I kept on talking, we would just get to more things that I disagree with him on. But yeah, he's clearly an extremely intelligent person. Like you don't become fluent in Mandarin if you're not an extremely adept intellectual mind, and he's a great communicator. Also, like we could do worse. We could do a lot worse than a President Buttigieg. Thank you, Odin-san. Thank you for being here. Airstyle says ICE wouldn't be unleashed 100% if Kamala won, but what about the Epstein files? Do you think they would have been released? Absolutely, Airstyle, and we would not be seeing the kind of obstruction that we're seeing from the DOJ and the FBI if Kamala was able to appoint the people who were in charge of those agencies. Bill says, why does David Benioff always talk politics on here? I don't know who David Benioff is. Are you saying that I look like David Benioff? CS says, do you think he will try to place little Marco as the leader of Cuba? I think that might be a little bit of a stretch, CS, but it's possible. Van Tyne says, Minnesota government made ICE the enemy and say they aren't police. This endangers people, both at fault. That is inaccurate, Van Tyne. There is only one group of people that is responsible for this chaos, and it is ICE and CPB, because ICE and CPB are trained. Hypothetically, they are trained. They are supposed to be the ones who are able to de-escalate. They are supposed to be the ones who, when people are protesting peacefully, that they don't escalate things further and murder people or beat people up. So it is their job to not do this. You can argue about whether Renee had turned into him or away from him. You can argue about if it's smart or not to bring a gun to a protest. But the fact of the matter is that within the code of conduct, ICE and CPB are way, way, way in the wrong. And it's like not even close. I'm talking about if you're going by the book, by the manual, if you're going by what everybody's due process rights are, or if you're just going by the dichotomy of people are not trained and law enforcement are trained. And so it is law enforcement's responsibility to not do things that escalate in that way. So yeah, I would say that you're way wrong about that, my guy. But thank you for asking that in the form of a question. Did you ask that in the form of a question? No, you did not ask it in the form of a question. Suri says, "Are you and Destiny brothers? You guys would get along very well." I don't know if we would. We might, and we're not brothers. I really just agree with him a bunch of things, but he's very successful, so I guess I appreciate the comparison. What's up, Mia? Good to see you again. Goes to the Gozerian says, now they are going to run Ossoff and Newsom so that AIPAC will still have control. I am not confident that John Ossoff and Governor Newsom would bend the knee to AIPAC and Israel the way that you are insinuating that they would. Goes to the Gozerian. I like Ossoff. I think he's a pretty good guy. I think Governor Newsom is completely adequate. He's totally fine. But yeah, I think it's a little hyperbolic to say that anybody who's a little bit centrist or potentially takes AIPAC money or tries to equivocate so that they aren't labeled as anti-Semites are as in the pockets of AIPAC and Netanyahu as the entire Republican Party is. Farla says, I'm not voting Democrats until they stop taking AIPAC money and stop bowing to Israel. Farla, if you hate Democrats for taking AIPAC money, then you probably hate Republicans for taking even more AIPAC money, right? Farla, I just want to make sure that we're in agreement here that if you look at all the elected Democrats versus all the elected Republicans, that there are way more elected Democrats who do not take money from AIPAC, and there are way more elected Democrats who vote against sending money and weapons to Israel. Like, I want to make sure we're on the same page here, Farla. Make sure that we know that these things that I just said are accurate so that we can then advance from that point and perspective, as opposed to just arguing Democrats. Oh, wait, hold on a second. Farla says, I don't like either. Both the Democrat and Republican Party are lobbies of Israel. So you didn't answer my question, Farla, which makes you sus as hell. So again, I ask you, and if your next comment is not an answer to this question, you're out of here, is do you recognize that Republicans are worse on this issue? Do you recognize that more Republican politicians take more AIPAC money? Do you recognize that Republican politicians have voted lockstep to continue sending money and weapons to Israel, and there are a ton of Democratic elected officials who are voting to not send money and weapons to Israel? I need you to acknowledge this, Farla. And if you don't agree with me that it's accurate, I will send you whatever information you want to prove it, because it is accurate. Real Revo says, make the guillotine great again. I don't condone violence, but I do agree that we should tax the rich, the real Revo. Farla says, why do liberals always think you're anti-Democrats, you're pro-Republican? I'm a leftist, and yes, I know. All right. Well, in that case, so you recognize that Republicans are worse on this issue. So we agree on that. We agree that Republicans are worse on this issue. All right. Fantastic, Farla. So here's my next question to you. If there are 50 Democrats in government who are willing to stand up for Israel, willing to stand up against Israel and AIPAC, is it better to send more Democrats to the government to help support them, even if they take AIPAC money? Or is it better to send more Republicans to the government who definitely take AIPAC money? Let me know what you think about that. Farla says, yes, I do recognize the lesser evil is still evil. Yeah, sus as hell, Farla. I don't buy your shit for 1 second. If you're not willing to go on this walk with me to recognize that it is more valuable to vote for a Democrat, even if they take AIPAC money, then I find you sus as hell. What people will do who are trying to convince you to not vote or that both parties are equally equal or are equally evil is they will stop you from leading them down the path that proves that it's better to vote for Democrats than Republicans. And the way they will do that is they won't answer your questions, and they'll divert and distract and deny. And this is what Farla is currently doing. So we are watching it happen in real time. Farla says, I'm not going to walk with you on this. I'm a leftist. I'm not voting for them. See, it was as though I predicted it into existence, almost like Farla is a chat bot that is just doing the things that I have predicted that they will say. So congratulations, you're out of here. All right, Burnslot says, now that America is clearly over, who will take it over first? At least Dems need money, not Epstein blackmail. I don't know what you mean by that, Burns Slots. And America is not over. Good people like me and you can stop what is happening. We can stop the bleed. We can make it so that America is a great country to live in again, where people, where people can live their fucking lives without getting fucking detained or beaten up or murdered by ICE and CPB. Darius says, Rubio 2028. You are in question jail. Darius, ask a question or I will boot you. Isaac says, how do I get into political debates and be well informed? I don't recommend listening to political debates. I think political debates are trash. I would just say, like, get like a good news roundup podcast, like something that's like 30 minutes where they just tell you all the things that happen. Listen to that for a little while, start picking things up from osmosis, then maybe start listening to more longer form content. Maybe pick up a something a little bit more dense, like a daily newspaper or a magazine, like the New Yorker, stuff like that. You know, you just want to make sure you stay away from debates and right wing media, because right wing media is statistically, scientifically proven to be the least accurate media that exists. Oh, right. Chris says Rubio don't speak American. I don't know what that means. Chris. Burnslot says, how can you stop it from happening? Trump cheats to win. Yes, but we have more power than Trump because there are way more of us than there are of him and his buddies. And so the entire thing that I advocate here, Burnslot, is people being involved and informed. And so, you know, I don't believe in that kind of doomerism that you know the game is already lost. I don't believe in it, but I also think that that's what they want you to think. Like that's what Trump and his billionaire buddies want you to think, that resistance is futile. And so I'm not going to give them that gift, because not only do I not believe in it, but also because fuck them. They can suck my fucking butthole as far as I'm concerned. I refuse to give up, man. Alrighty, let me know what you think about that, Burn Slots. All right, back over to these TikTok comments. Happy follower says left wing has no ideas for America. That is inaccurate, happy follower. The left has a lot of great ideas for America. Would you like me to tell you about some of them? Lee Bing says, do you think the U.S. would be better off with JD should Trump be impeached? I do. JD Vance is a massive piece of shit. He's way smarter than Donald Trump, so it's possible that he could do more damage. But I think that the thing that Donald Trump has that makes him so able to be dangerous is that his base loves him. And I don't think that JD Vance has that same sort of cult of personality behind him. And I think that without that cult of personality, you start seeing a lot of Republicans acting a lot less insane. You know, there's some impunity that Trump and Republicans have right now because of that base. I was just reported for harassment and bullying, which is fucking hilarious. You know, Jedicus says, impeached for what? Who impeached? What impeached, Jedicus? What are you talking about? CS says, do you see Hakeem Jeffries' tax policy he's going to introduce? No tax on 75K. I haven't heard anything about that. Are you saying it's a good thing or a bad thing, CS? Chris says, Rubio spoke Spanish in front of Keg's Breath and made it a point to brag that he didn't speak Spanish and only spoke American. Yeah, I don't know anything about that. This is all news to me. Weird that he would speak Spanish and then claim that he didn't speak Spanish. So yeah, I'm not sure. Okay, where am I? Isaiah says, you are a brainwashed individual, vote blue no matter who. No, I'm not, Isaiah. Isaiah, if you want to ask a question, you can. Happy Fowler says, there's nothing of value here. Go, good grief, bye. All right, well, don't let the door hit your ass on the way out. Okay, Belgian Boxer says, what do you think of Professor Jang calling out the Illuminati? I don't know who Professor Jang is. Adams Garden, great to see you again, says, do you believe Al Jazeera or Middle Eastern Al Arabia, which is more trustworthy? I don't know about Middle Eastern or Al Arabia, but I do know that Al Jazeera is a generally respected publication. Just, you know, you should recognize that I believe it's funded by Qatar, at least in parts. So you just have to recognize that there might be a little pro-Qatar spin on the ball. CS says, no tax on the first 75K, I think would be good for most Americans. Oh, yeah. So no taxes on any income up to $75,000. That seems like a pretty good idea to me. As long as we make up that tax revenue by taxing the rich. I love that. Okay. Greasy says, how do we get rid of fake AI that is misinforming people politically? I don't think there's a way that we as civilians can do it. If we had a government that was incentivized to do that, maybe the government could do something about that. But what can you and I do? We can fight it, and we can fight it in real life. Like if we just use the internet, we are going to get drowned out. It is the billionaires have way bigger reach and more resources than us to be able to flood the airways with the exact same kind of propaganda and misinformation that they want us to all to be gulping up. but we can talk to people in real life, and they can't match those numbers. If we phone tree our way to a shared reality of actual information as opposed to right-wing funded propaganda, then we can win. Then we can win. And then we can start talking about like regulations that would stop all this AI nonsense from infecting people's noodles. Alrighty, Adams Garden says yes, but Qatar is an American ally. I think at this point, neither CNN nor Fox News is honest with me. Yeah, Qatar is an American ally, but they 100% have motivations that are antithetical to what might be best for American citizens. So it is important to just keep that in mind. I don't think that you should get your news from one source, regardless of if it is Al Jazeera or CNN or Fox News. But yeah, the Guardian UK I think is great. BBC America is flawed but great. Yeah, you got a lot of really good options there as far as ways to get a diverse media diet. All right, Doc Ossip says hi from Greenland. Hello back. All right, Izia says Dems have funded ICE. They stand by Israel. They take AIPAC money. I should vote for that? Question mark? No. Yeah, but Republicans do all those things worse, Isaiah. So what do you think about my plan, Isaiah? My plan is that we replace every Republican with a Democrat. And if the Democrats are still funding ICE and taking money from AIPAC and doing things for Israel, then we primary those Democrats, but we don't replace them with Republicans because Republicans are just going to go and do the thing the Democrats were doing that we hated, but they're going to do it more and worse and more in lockstep. So what do you think about my plan? How about we just primary every Democrat that doesn't do what we want, and we replace every Republican with a Democrat so that we don't have the worst version of Democrats? Does that sound like a pretty good plan to you, my guy? Real Revo says, so we know our government is corrupt and we're still trying to vote. Real Vo, if voting didn't change anything, then why would Republicans be trying to keep you from doing it? Congratulations, Real Revo. You are sus as hell. You're in question jail. I don't trust you one lick. Isaiah says, how can that work when the majority of the Democratic Party are funded by AIPAC? Well, because the Democratic Party doesn't decide who gets to run as politicians. We do. We vote for the people that win the primary, and we can vote and support the Democrats that are not funded by AIPAC, Isaiah. So that seems like a pretty easy thing to do, isn't it? You can just figure out who's running in your district and find out if they take AIPAC money. And if you don't like it, then look for the candidate that doesn't take AIPAC money or is against taking AIPAC money, and you vote for them and you work really hard to get them elected. Real Revo says, you're lost if you think we can change anything. Congratulations. That was your final straw. Isaiah says, but the ones who want to be president next are funded by AIPAC. I don't know if that is accurate, Isaiah. I don't believe that anybody has announced a candidacy. So you can't tell me that the ones who want to be president next are funded by AIPAC. And also, it's possible that there will be candidates who aren't, and we can vote for them instead, Isaiah. Do you see what I'm getting at here? The world doesn't have to go, the future doesn't have to go the way that you think it's going to go. It can go better if we do the work. Right, Adams Garden says any PAC should be banned for funding the candidates. I mean, we need to reverse Citizens United. Adams Garden, completely agree with that. And Democrats are going to do that, and Republicans are not going to, Alrighty. Adams Garden says Isaiah meant by Kamala. She was heavily funded by AIPAC. All right, well, I'm not talking about the past. I'm talking about the future. Ginger Spectre says, did I say something wrong? I don't know. I haven't seen any of your comments for a while, Ginger Spectre, so I couldn't tell you. Isaiah, are you still there? Because just remember, you're sus. You're sus as hell. Alrighty, Chris, I think this is a bad metaphor since you still need to make healthy choices. Yeah, completely agree with that, Chris. Chris says, treat your media diet like a buffet. But then he amended, I guess that's a bad metaphor since you still need to make healthy choices. Yeah, it should be a buffet, but you need to make sure that you're getting, your vegetables and your shit. All right, welcome, everybody. This is Ask Me Anything About Politics. My name is Jarrett, and I'm here to answer all your questions about politics, be they simple or complicated, be you left-wing or right-wing. I don't care what your political philosophy is, left-wing, right-wing, Democrat, Republican, something in the middle, something on the outskirts. I'm here to answer your questions regardless of what your political philosophy is. I don't believe in fighting or debating or roasting or harassing or bullying. I get reported for harassment, even though all I'm doing is saying facts about the news, which seems pretty sus to me. Why would somebody who's left-wing person saying the facts be accused of harassing and bullying? Is it maybe because people want to shut them up? Seems pretty interesting to me. I don't know. Greasy says ground news is really good, non-biased app to get news from. I do like ground news a lot. Mia says, I think Trump is getting us into a world war. What do you think? I think that if anything is going to get us into a world war, it is the way that Trump is behaving. I still have faith that a world war is not going to break out, but if you wanted one to work out to happen, you would do what Trump is doing. All right, let's see here. Ainzel Montaraz says, what do you think would be a good counter argument towards the argument against an increase in taxes for the high earners to fund social programs? They say high earners deserve the money they made and shouldn't fund lazy people. So a couple of things about that, Heinzel. I mean, the first thing that I would say is, number one, that is a narrative that was created by the billionaire class to keep you from taxing them. And it is based on a lie. The billionaire class did not work a billion times harder than you and me, and that's the reason why they have all of that money. They are not a billion times smarter and a billion times more capable and a billion times more of a genius. They got lucky and they exploited a system that was designed to funnel money from the poor to the wealthy. You want to talk about lazy people? Every billionaire that I know, I guarantee you, is 1,000 times lazier than somebody who's trying to make their living on welfare or minimum wage or is on food stamps or whatever. So yeah, what we're looking at here is a system that was poorly designed to funnel too much of ill-gotten gains to the billionaire class. And that does not that doesn't mean that their success is their own. It means that they were partnered with a massive global system that was designed to ascend them specifically. So, it's not fair that they got that money. That doesn't mean that it's unfair to take that money away from them. If somebody cheats at Monopoly, you're allowed to take that money back that they cheated with. Alrighty. D, great to see you again, says currently without skirts, wearing pants. I don't know what that means. Right, let's get back into these TikTok comments. Ginger Spectre says, just hoping Dems don't put their hopes on someone that half the nation ain't going to vote for. Nobody knows, Ginger Spectre. Nobody knows if it is better to have one candidate as the nominee than the other. Nobody can tell you who's going to win an election before the election actually happens, Ginger Spectre. That's number one. Number two is Dems will put their hopes on whoever they want to put their hopes on. But the primary voters will decide who the candidate is. Ginger Spectre says Newsom is hated by Republicans. All right, but so is every candidate. Every Democratic candidate is going to be hated by Republicans. I don't believe there's a single Democratic candidate that the right wing is going to, is going to get behind. Max Schmidt says, so you believe every millionaire or higher has exploited someone in some way? Yeah, but not every millionaire or higher has exploited someone intentionally. Some of them just inherited all of their wealth and just continued in existing in a system of exploitation that they were lied to and told was fair by everybody who works below them and is kissing their ass, shit like that. Leah Bing says, do you think Trump only won because he ran against women? No, I think he won because of Russian election interference and campaign finance violations and illegal lobbying from adversarial nations like Russia, shit like that. Ginger Spectre says, what do you mean? What do you mean? What do I mean? Alrighty, let's see here. Mia says, any Iran war is costing us $1 billion a day. Why would we want to be throwing money away on this? I don't know either, Mia. People are being lied to about how expensive this war is. They're being lied to about the reasons why we're in this war. There's no good reason. There's no good exit strategy. It is just throwing money down the garbage so that people can die and everything can be more expensive. Alrighty. Ginger Spectre says, I meant to the commentator saying I voted for Trump. Oh, okay. Well, I said a lot of things, Ginger Spectre. Be part of the chat. Leah Bings. All right, did that one. Let's get over to these Twitch and YouTube comments. Burnslot says, say we do vote out MAGA. How do we defeat the Epstein class that runs America? So first we need to get Republicans out. We put people in charge of the DOJ and the FBI who will release that information to the public, who will do their fucking job. When they do, we will start seeing who is implicated in that sphere, and then we will throw them in jail. And if that includes people who are currently elected politicians, then we will just replace them with people who are not in the Epstein files. People are being born every single day. I'm sure we can find somebody to run for political office who wasn't in the Epstein files. Doc Ossip says, what's your stance on genital mutilation? I'm against it. Airstyle says, there's no way there's a World War III. Everyone is against Iran at the moment. That's not true. China and Russia and North Korea are working with Iran. Burnslot says, intel on planes with unknown stuff. Don't know what that's in reference to. Chris says, next time you're at work and you're feeling lazy, give your check to the dude breaking his back to pick up the slack. Next time you're at work and feeling lazy, give your check to the dude breaking his back to pick up your slack. I don't know what that is an argument for or against, Chris. D says, you mentioned where people are politically. Oh, giggle, I see. Burnslot says, who gets invaded next, Canada, Greenland, or Cuba? Probably Cuba. It's always going to be easier to sell a war against brown people than against white people. And so that's what Trump is going to do. Right. D says, Trump has never defeated a woman in a national election. I don't know if that's accurate, D. I don't know if that's accurate. All right, let's see here. Adam's Garden says, what do you think? Are we winning? The work is working. Whether we win or not is dependent. We still have some time to figure that shit out. Alrighty. Ginger Spectre says, no disrespect to him. All right, fair enough. Greasy says, do you think the FBI is trying to twist the boom thing outside Mamdani's place towards ISIS? I have no idea. I don't really trust the FBI under Kash Patel, so we just kind of have to take everything that they say with a massive grain of salt. Carmine says, I'll do it, but I need you as my advisor, and I can only pay you in gummies. I'll do anything. Anything that you ask, Carmine. All right, Triska says, it's going to take decades to fix this mess that the MAG has made. It depends, Triska. It really depends on how many people like you and me do the work. Because if lots of people do the work, then we can get out of this way faster than decades. Barry Lane says, what are your ideas, if any, about Israel building a temple and the perfect red heifers? I don't know what red heifers are. I don't know anything about Israel building a temple. Barry Lane, this is all, you'll have to be more specific with your questions, unfortunately. All right, welcome everybody to Ask Me Anything About Politics. My name is Jared, and I answer all your questions about politics, be they simple or complicated, left wing or right wing. I don't care if you're a Republican, a Democrat, something in the middle, something on the outskirts. Everybody is welcome here, as long as you are asking questions in good faith. I really appreciate everybody who's been here already, asking questions, being part of the conversation. It is you guys doing your questions and supporting me with your likes and shares and gifts. That is the reason why I am able to do this show. All right, Leah Bing. So happy that you watched my live for 100 minutes. Excellent. That's 2 shows. That's 2 full shows. If you want to support the show financially, you can, but you don't have to. I know that we're all struggling, but if you have the means and you have the desire, then the mechanisms are there for you. Tina Ma says, what do you think would have happened if Iran had a nuclear weapon? I think we would be treating them exactly the same way that we're treating North Korea right now, which is, with kid gloves and with an extremely long stick we just poke at them with. CS says, do you think Mexico will be after Cuba? That's a really good question. I have no idea. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I have no idea. Let's see here. Adam's Garden says, Pete H. now announced a holy war, and Trump is Jesus appointed by Christ. Is it normal? No, it is not normal, Adam's Garden. It's completely fucking insane that we have people in charge of the government who believe that we need to bring Armageddon to the Middle East so that they can get raptured up to heaven and Jesus can come back. It's fucking psychotic, man. Primal Blood says, what do you think about mainstream media spreading false claims about bacteria in food? I I don't know that mainstream media is spreading false information about bacteria in food. Primal Blood, don't yell at me. Toasted says, do you believe the two-party system works at all? And do you think there is no system that's better? I do think the two-party system works, but I also think there's a better system. I think that if we had ranked choice voting, that we'd have more and better representation. Ginger Spector says, why would Hegseth say Trump was appointed by Jesus for Armageddon? I want to be very specific about this. There are people in the government right now who believe that we need to bring Armageddon to the Middle East so that the end of the world can happen. Jesus will return to the earth. Revelations will happen. Everybody that's a good Christian will get zipped up to heaven, and everybody else will have to live on earth, which is now hell. So that should be really concerning that there are people in the government right now that believe that and are legislating and commanding the military based on that philosophy. Seems like that should be really concerning for everybody. Everybody, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, you should 100% be worried about the fact that there are Christian extremists who believe some wildly bananas things about the end of the world and bringing it about via American military intervention. All right. D. Scott says they're calling him the imperfect vessel. He's definitely imperfect. Primal Blood says they're spreading false claims on raw meat. Mainstream science, bro. Gonna go ahead and block you. Adam's Garden says, so Persians are blocking Jesus from coming down from heaven. That's what they believe, Adam's Garden. Brian Smith says, if you could take nuclear weapons away from North Korea, would you? I would take them away from everybody, including America. All right. Amir Fun says, thank you, tramp. Free Iran. You're welcome, slut. I think that's what we're doing, right? We're calling each other like the silly names that like girls call each other when they go out drinking with each other. You fucking tramp. Look at you. Look at you, tramp. Oh my God. You're such a slut. Oh my God. All my friends are such sluts. Oh my God. Free Iran, sluts. Hell yeah. Toasted says, what's your political stance? I am a progressive Democrat. Burn Slot says, so America is a satanic death cult? ? No, America is not. But there are people in the Trump administration, people at very high levels, who are doing things to bring about the apocalypse because they believe that is part of their Christian faith. All right, Sam. Amir Fun again says, thank you, tramp. Free Iran. You're welcome, slut. Oh my God. Free Iran, my queen. Yes. God, we're such whores for freeing Iran. Oh my God, I can't believe us. Sam says, will restore hamper reform by splitting the voter base come election? I have no idea. Nobody does. CS says, you're going to get a bullying alert for that, potentially. But I mean, I get bullying alerts, when I'm over here just, reciting the alphabets. There's no rhyme or reason to it. So, if I can justify it as not bullying, then I can sleep at night, even if TikTok disagrees. All right, Carmen says, put that in your shop. Design it for me, fans, and send it over to me. Brian Smith says, well, that's what your government are doing in Iran now, stopping nuclear weapons capabilities. That is not what we're doing, Brian, and it is not why we are currently dropping bombs on Iran, Brian Smith. That is inaccurate. Would you like to talk about that more, Brian? Let me know. Amir Khan says, don't support the Islamic Republic terrorists. Democrat supports Mala. Amir, you have stopped doing fun things with your typos, so I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of you now. We had a good giggle. Yes, queen. But sorry, you slutted too close to the sun. J City says, why is there so much bipartisan support in Congress for the war in Iran when a majority oppose it? I think that there are a lot of reasons why Democratic politicians get bullied into voting for wars and war funding. I don't think any of them are good ideas, but I do think that they are better faith ideas than Republican politicians who are really heavily invested in making sure that their military industrial complex stocks go through the roof. So yeah, it's a complicated melange of political motivations, but I can guarantee you that we would not be fucking bombing you know girls for schools in Iran if Democrats were running the government right now. Toasted says, "Do you believe everything is political?" I don't believe that everything is political. All right, Brian Smith says, "So why do you think you are in Iran? What country are you TikToking from, Brian Smith? And are you an American citizen? Because you did say, why do you think you're in Iran, not why do you think that we are in Iran? So that makes me think that you are not an American citizen, or at least not in America. So you are Scottish, Brian Smith. Welcome. So we're in Iran for a bunch of reasons that have absolutely nothing to do with the well-being of the Iranian citizens or nuclear proliferation. I can't tell you exactly why that is, but I know that every reason that the Trump administration has given has been debunked, and they've been giving contrary reasons. There is a significant amount of evidence to suggest that people who have just really wanted to go with Iran for a long time have been fucking hitting Trump over the head with this for a really long time. Lindsey Graham went to Israel so that the Mossad could teach him the lies to tell Trump to convince him to invade Iran. Donald Trump has been given billions of dollars in bribes from Israel, from the Qataris, from the Saudis, from the United Arab Emirates, and so potentially he is being motivated because of pressure from those actors as well. Potentially he believes that we can take over that area and he can build some more golf courses and Trump resorts and make a fucking ton of money that way, you know? Yeah, there's a lot of really shitty potential motivations, but none of the good ones that they are trying to sell us are accurate at all. Tyler says, "How have you not lost any hair yet at your age?" Because I have been on medication to keep my hair called finasterides. Excellent questions, everybody. Excellent questions. Toasted says, "Where do you get your political news? Because I get news from everywhere, and it all feels contradictory." Yeah, that's intentional. Toasted. So here's what I would say: try to cut right-wing news sources out of your diet because that's where a lot of your misinformation is coming from. But if you can square the rest of media, then you should get a relatively accurate view of what's going on in the world. Personally, I read the news from a bunch of different sources. I read articles from Ground News. I read the Reddit news feed. I listen to podcasts. I try to absorb as much of this information as I can. Kyler Woolstrom says, "When did you start taking it? Just that medicine or any other? I want to save mine too." What medicine are you talking about, Kyler? I'm not really sure. Oh, finasteride. I started taking it when I was in my 20s. Let's see here. Yeah, talk to your doctor. Talk to see if. Yeah, I'm not giving any medical advice here on this live stream, guys. But if that's something you're interested in, talk to your doctor. Right. Let's see here. Brian Smith says, basically, you think Israel talked him into it. Iranian government chant death to America. Not good if they are nuclear. All right, Brian. Yeah, but I don't care. I don't give a shit. I'm not going to blow up a country just because they are chanting death to America. Don't we believe in freedom of speech? Don't we believe that the citizens of that country are able to have a negative opinion of a country that has been fucking with them for the last like 80 years? I think that's perfectly reasonable. But yeah, I think that Israel talking him into it is one possible motivation. Brian Smith. It's a little sus that I gave you like 5 hypotheticals, and that's the only one that you strawmanned my argument into. All right. Kyle says, "Do you take any others?" No, just finasterides. Yeah, guys, don't ask me dermatological questions. Don't ask me questions about how you can keep your hair. I can only tell you what I have done. Chris Lamrock says, I'm betting Trump's new plan is to get as many soldiers killed as possible to try to sway the people. Yeah, potentially. If more Americans die, then potentially more Americans will be mad at Iran instead of instead of the Trump administration for sending them to do that war in the first place. Yeah, another possible motivation is Trump wants to declare martial law, and so he wants there to be a war that is wildly out of control so that he can justify taking further fascistic reign of the American government. Let's see here. It's the Rocketeer says Dems should frame the 100. I don't know what that means. Brian Smith says, no, you said a bunch of reasons and gave that one as far as I can recall. I gave a bunch of reasons, Brian Smith. I think it's really sus that you didn't hear any other potential things that I said. I said like 5 other things. Kyler, all right, did that one. Stevovo says, someone once said, don't go to war, started by them. Someone once said, don't go to war, started by them. I don't know what that means, Stevo. Alrighty. Peace and Love asks, can I spell finasteride? I think so. F-I-N and A-S as T-E-R-I-D-E. All right, Ginger Spector says, America is full of people who poke a bear with a stick and complain when they get bit. I generally agree with that. Adams Garden says, do you think Iranians would attack Americans in the Middle East if we didn't join Israel, the Israeli war 10 days ago? Do I think there are Iranians who attack Americans in the Middle East? I think it's possible. Like, it's not like Iranians don't have anything to be mad at the American government for, and sometimes American citizens feel the collateral brunt of those efforts. But I don't think that we would see a concerted effort from the Iranian government to hurt Americans if we didn't join the Israeli war 10 days ago. All right, scrolling down to the bottom of the TikTok comments. First, we'll go over to D. Which will run out first? A 30K drones or $4 million interceptor missiles? $4 million interceptor missiles, D. Misty Lane says, I was watching a debate last night about them banning guns for people on drugs. I thought it would negatively affect those affected by the drug war. What would happen if Republicans classify guns as heavy machinery so people on drugs and pregnant women cannot use them? That is a really good question, Misty Lane. And I got to be honest, I have not fully thought this one out. Shooting people on guns, pregnant women cannot use them. I mean, I think that the overall Republican strategy is to stop Democrats from voting or Democrats from having guns. And so you kind of have to look at it through that lens, like make it so that so that they have a monopoly on holding weapons. And so, they will, accidentally take weapons away from Republicans if they are taking more guns away from Democrats. So, first of all, peace and love, Triska Musking. Thank you so much for helping me reach my second finger hearts goal of the day. So, if more women vote for Democrats than Republicans, but there are some women who vote Republican, they will still take the right to vote away from all women if it's a net positive for them. If they end up getting more votes taken away for women, and same thing with guns. Like if more people that enjoy gardening are Democrats than Republicans, and if we take guns away from everybody that enjoys gardening, then we will still be a net positive. Okay, Steve Ovo says you can't cancel guns, but limit the use of them. I mean, I think you can cancel guns, but I also agree that we should start by limiting the use of them. Period emoji says, what do you think of Flanders going independent? They are the northern part of Belgium. I have absolutely no knowledge about that, so sorry about that. Orel says, why does Trump want to attack Cuba? Is it to divert attention from the real plan? So everything that Trump and his toadies do, it is both a bad thing and also a distraction. So I'm not telling you that Cuba is not a distraction from ICE and CPB, or that Cuba is not a distraction from the Epstein files, or that Cuba is not a distraction from Trump selling political pardons via corrupt contributions to his Bitcoin, shit like that. But it is also true that there are other positives to Trump and his acolytes with the destruction of Cuba. For example, you know, there are a lot of hardliners in the Cuban American community who will vote for the Republican Party for the next 10 generations if the Republican Party takes over Cuba and gets rid of the current government of Cuba. And where everything is concerned, chaos helps the Republican Party and the billionaire class because it makes people crave security, and people will give away their rights to get security, and that's enabling the police state that the Republican Party essentially wants. And so there is a long-term plan for destabilizing other countries so that they retaliate against America, or that chaos reaches our shores some other way. And then Trump and his acolytes using that as an excuse to further take away people's civil liberties and due process. Okay. Oh, thank you, D. I really appreciate that. All right. Missy Lane says, "Who's the first person that you voted for?" This is really fucking embarrassing, so don't judge me too hard. But the first vote I ever cast was for, it was for Nader in the 2000 election. I was a stupid college student in Ohio, and I could have voted for what do you call it, Al Gore in Ohio, because I was technically living there because I was going to college there. But instead, I voted Nader, vote by mail, in California, where I was from. And so, yeah, I don't know that my one vote would have swayed the election in 2000, but it definitely wasn't the most strategic vote I ever made. Okay, JP, Average Joe, great to see you again. So doesn't it seem like the best weapon the government and media uses to keep Americans hating the Middle East is distracting us from simply asking, why do they hate our government? I mean, yeah, if a government is, trying to sell you on a war, they're going to make up a bunch of really stupid shit about it. Like saying, why do they hate our government? Yeah. I think you know the answer to that question, Average Joe. Right. CS says, where did you attend college? In Ohio. I went to a small and very beautiful college named Kenyon College. D. Scott says, my first federal vote was Ross Perot. Well, if that was going to be a vote for George H.W. Bush, then I say thank you very much, D. Scott. Ginger Spector says, education taught me to think on my own and not watch biased media sources. I mean, there's a difference between like regular human bias and billionaire funded bias. And I think that mainstream news can have that regular bias, and they can have that owned by billionaire bias. But there's also, things like Fox News, where it's like the bias is the product as opposed to, a flaw in the product. D. Scott says, no, it wasn't. I had a strong dislike against Bill Clinton. Ooh. Well, I guess depending on what that dislike was based on, D. Scott, you may be right or you may be wrong. Off Duty Nation says, thoughts on AIPAC? I am against it. I am against all far right-wing lobbying organizations like AIPAC, the Heritage Foundation, and the Federalist Society. Ginger Spector says, I grew up on Fox News in my household, then the military taught me if you vote liberal, you hate America. Well, how do you feel now, Ginger Spector? Mia's All the Adventures says, I think Bill Clinton was an amazing president. I think he did some really great things, Mia. I think he's done some really bad things also, though. Corporal Fly says, World War III, I wouldn't bet on it, but anything is possible. If you wanted World War III to happen, you would be doing exactly what Trump is currently doing. Okay, Average Joe says, I'm saying we're kept distracted, so we don't ask that question. Oh, yes, interesting. Yeah, I mean, I generally agree with that. Average Joe. JP has put a little bit of a news bulletin over on Twitch about 5 minutes ago. 2 congressional sources told U.S. broadcasters that the war is costing the American states an estimated $1 billion a day. A day later, Politico reported $2 billion a day. Wow. $2 billion a day for this stupid fucking war, you know? Alex says Democrats are fucked because they embrace trans nonsense. That's not a question, so you're out of here. CS says, do you believe Bubba is Bill Clinton and Trump's first taste of the presidency was before 2016? That's pretty funny. I don't think it was Bill Clinton, but it might have been, and it's funny to think that it might be. All right, yeah. If you want to support the show financially, guys, you can, but you don't have to. You know, you can join my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. You can be a you can send gifts on TikTok. You can send bits and emotes on Twitch. Let me know if you see those and if you like them, my Twitch viewers. Let's see here. What else? You can become a super fan on TikTok. You become a subscriber on Twitch, and if you have Amazon Prime, you can be a subscriber on Twitch for $0. Costs you nothing. Helps me out a ton. If there are any questions that I was not able to get to on this live stream, DMs are open. You can email me through my website. You can hit me up on my Discord channel. I want to be a resource for you guys, so any way that I can do that, use me and abuse me. Use me until you have used me up. Use me to be better informed and involved in politics, guys. That is my whole fucking thing here. So yeah, don't be shy about reaching out, guys. I want to be a resource. And the Discord is great because there's also recommendations there for books and podcasts and great nonprofit organizations that desperately need help from people like you. Thank you, Mia. I appreciate that. Corporal Fly says, Professor John predicts we'll lose the war in Iran. Your thoughts? I would want to know what he means by losing. I think that that there are many definitions of us losing this war. The same way that like we lost the war in Vietnam, but that didn't mean that like Vietnam conquered America. But you could also say that we lost the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan because they ended up being decades-long, protracted fucking boondoggles. So, depending on what definition of lose, where on that spectrum you define it, I think he's probably right to say that we are going to lose. But what lose means can be a bunch of different things. It is at least going to be as bad as Iraq and Afghanistan. That's my general prediction. Right. Samu says, what do you think about the Spanish PM? I like him a lot. I don't know too much about the government in Spain. I've heard good things, little smatterings. Every time I hear like a world leader do something good, I always tell my wife we should go vacation there and give them some of our tourist dollars. And I remember saying that about Spain very specifically. I've also seen a lot of stories about people in Spain being mad at how many tourists there are in Spain. So I'm not doing that thing. I'm not going there to give them my tourism dollars because it seems like you guys don't want us there right now, and I'm fine with that. I'm cool. I would respect you guys and all things. But yeah, my guess is that they are a good person. Scum of the Bag says, who do you think is winning the Mongolian elections this year? I have no idea. CS says, when's the last war the United States actually won? January 6th. America won that war. In the short term. Unfortunately, they made the January 6th forces made, unfortunately, a massive step forward in their war against America. But, we're still in it. I would say the last big battle that America won was on January 6th. Alrighty. All right, everybody. Let's see here. Lastly, Corporal Fly said it's January 6th. Fuck you. Is that a cute fuck you? Like fuck you for saying something snarky, or is that a seriously fuck you? I hate you because I was there on January 6th and I agree with what they were doing. Alrighty, let's see here. All right, everybody. Lastly, just my heartfelt plea for everybody out there on the internet to do the work, spread the word, recruit, convince, talk to people in real life, your friends, your neighbors, your coworkers, because that's the only way that we get out of this shit, guys. This is the only way that we get out of this. Hold on a second, Carmine. That is fucking priceless. I was talking about January 6th being the last war that America won, but they somehow took a massive step forward, and Carmine wrote, and somehow the January Sixers returned, echoing Oscar Isaac's immortal "somehow Palpatine returned" line, the greatest line in cinema history. Let's see here. Ryzen says, willful ignorance, avoid facts and propaganda, conspiracies, educate, don't debate. Completely agree. Let's see here. Marco says, thoughts on seizing the means of production? I don't know if we need to seize it. Maybe we can have some means of production through government. Maybe we can use the government to incentivize employee-owned companies. Maybe we can pass a law that says that the CEO isn't allowed to make more than 50 times the lowest paid employee's salary. Maybe we can stop hyper-monopolization and bring back free market competition, shit like that. Carmine, excellent block, excellent mute. Well done. All right, everybody, do the work. Be good to yourselves. Self-care is part of the work. Be good to each other. You don't have to be a dick to do the work. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Same bad time, same bad channel. Talk to you. Oh, no, actually, tomorrow we are doing a special early live stream. We're going to be doing it at 10 a.m. Pacific time because I'm doing the God podcast at 11 a.m. Pacific time, which is when I would normally do this live stream. So we're an hour early tomorrow, everybody. We are an hour early tomorrow. So if you want to check out the live stream, it is at 10 a.m. Pacific time tomorrow. We will see you guys then, everybody. Take care.